All right, hey folks, we're going to do some game design today. We're working with Spelljammer using 5e24 mechanics. Give me a second here. I'm going to check in on my signal to make sure that we're coming through loud and proud. And we're going to do some really fast social media updates, and we'll get to work here for a little bit. So, let's see. Mic check, mic check. So, let's see. Mic check, mic check. So, let's see. Mic check, mic check. So, yeah, sounds pretty good. Okay, let's drop this volume down so it doesn't get in the way. And there we go. Okay, that should be good. I'm going to grab the social media post here real quick, and we'll get to work. So for those that aren't familiar with the channel already, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games. I illustrate them, and I publish them online, and I've been creating content for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition on the DMsGuild since 2018. I've been an Eberron and I've been a Spelljammer enthusiast. I want to say since I think it was 1993 when the setting came out. I bought the box set at Ye Old B. Dalton's bookstore in the malls of America back in the day. And I've been a DM since 1987. So I've been around the block for a little while. I've played every edition. I've DM'd most of them. I certainly have a number of opinions, and when 5e24, or rather when the 5th edition Spelljammer guide was released, we created what you can see here on the book cover is Spelljammer Combat Exploration, which is a deep dive into Spelljammer ship combat and exploration mechanics. For combat, it's using the 5e action economy as a group on a ship that your pilot is effectively wild shaping themselves into to operate and move as normal D&D combat at the 5e as 5e characters would, except that you're at the 50, 500, or even 1 mile scale, depending on whether you're using a fighter craft, vessels, or a whole fleet of ships. But the action economy remains the same. And then exploration, we did a deep dive into like astral travel, plotting and graphing, ship movement, planetary movement around a central star, wild space systems, hazards in space, blah 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 blah. Just all the connective tissue and stuff that comes up in Spelljammer Adventures that wasn't covered in the Spelljammer Adventures in Space. And you can actually see a link to that here. Let me fix my screen. And let's get rid of our social media posts here. If you drop down to here, Spelljammer Combat and Exploration, you'll find this book. It has a 100% free preview. Check it out if you're a Spelljammer enthusiast or you just want good flight ship movement combat options for DnD5e. It's a good supplement for you to lean into. Today specifically, we're going to be looking at, I think we might be bouncing between the Warforged Machines, which is like a Gundam kaiju sort of book that leans into the combat mechanics that we created, and the Spelljammer Subclass. So these are all subclasses that utilize the mechanics that we developed in the 5e24 book. We've already done some preliminary work here, looking at character options for ship weapon masteries, since when you're operating a ship, you're effectively increasing the scale of your character to the 50 or the 500 foot scale to interact with giant creatures and other ships that you're in combat with. It made sense that we would port the weapon mastery mechanics into siege weapons. So if you were to take the push mastery, then you would be able to use that with bludgeoning rams. We also added in grappling for grappling tentacles and claws, like on like a scorpion ship has claws. The Illithid ship, or let me draw myself down back here. There we go. The Illithid ship has tentacles, for instance. These are things that can grapple, which is when you hit with an attack, automatically force a grapple save, and so bludgeoning ram is a push move target. You can't really knock things prone when they're. I mean, you can, but it's not a lot of good logic. Like topple mastery doesn't make a lot of sense with ships that are flying. Like how do you topple a fish? Because all these ships have hovering. topple doesn't do anything to you, because the way that we built ship combat is that you have movement, and you're considered to be having perfect flight, being able to fly backwards, forwards, strafe side to side, as well as hover at 0 movement. And then of course you can move up to 200 or 100 million miles per day, which roughly breaks down into 10,000 miles per round, is how that roughly breaks down. So you could divide that up into five squares of 1,000 squares each, and then if you took the dash action on top of it, you would then be able to get the 10 squares at 1,000 miles per square. That ends up being 10,000 miles. So once you get into the 500 foot square scale, 500 foot scale of a ship moving 10,000 miles and around, obviously you don't have to worry about being able to close distance with opponents to be able to get within melee range, or the siege weapons that we use, like these siege weapons have a range of 1 mile. So there's a very small arena, small point of engagement, which is what I really like about the Age of Sail's fantasy of Spelljammer, the old school ships with the old school weapons, because you don't have lasers like shooting like 100,000 miles away or whatever and perhaps losing intensity over time. We just keep it close so that you're operating within a 1 mile scale. And once you fire a weapon outside of your own gravity field, it basically has no gravity. So it can travel up to 1 mile away, which is at the 500 foot scale, 10 squares. It's 100 squares at the 50 foot scale. It's 1,000 squares at the 5 foot scale. So at the 500 foot scale, where you're basically engaged in range combat in ships, you've got basically 10 squares that you can shoot at something. But if it's more than 10 squares away, because these aren't beams of light that just appear and nuke you, and then they're over as soon as they pop. And then you're launching a stone, or you're firing an arrow at something. It's 1 mile away. They can literally see it coming from 1 mile away, literally. So if you're more than 1 mile away, if they aren't surprised, they can just automatically dodge out of the way. You can't hit them. If they are unaware of the incoming attack, you can hit more than 1 mile away, but you're going to be at disadvantage on the attack roll. If you're within 1 mile, you have your normal weapon range distances that can apply. So basically, you've got your short, like a ballista has a 250 foot short range, and then up to 1 mile away is at disadvantage, is like your long range. So this is taking into account these different types of weapons that are utilized. You'll recognize most of these: push, graze, vex, sap, slow, and then of course we add grappling. So these are the type of weapons attacks. Eldritch cannons for vex, ballistas for graze makes sense, mangonels for sap, trebuchets to slow. These all make sense. These all still make sense. So I'm happy with this, with those choices. We're looking at the Artificer. We've seen a lot of material come through from the Artificers over the past year. I'm waiting. I'm looking forward to seeing what the actual Warforged document that they were producing, how does that resolve? I'm going to separate these layers here. There. Put this down here. Keep these things separated. I don't have a ton of time today. I've got about a half hour today, so we're just getting started, intro into this, and keep moving. So, Siege Engineer, infuse and create siege weapons with Eldritch power. You gain proficiency in Carpenter's and Smith tools, or choose another tool. In addition, you can choose siege weapons as one of your plans, and when you craft siege weapons, reduce the time required to craft them by 1 degree. The time taken is determined by the cost of the siege weapon. Gold piece value. This is the gold piece values of magic items and rarity, from common, uncommon, rare, very rare, and legendary, and the time that it takes to construct them. A week, a season. Actually, we should go a week, a month, and then a season, which is obviously 4 months. So 4 weeks in a month. 3 months in a season. So this gets reduced down to a month. The month gets reduced to a week, and then a week gets reduced to a day. So you can make a trebuchet is I believe it's over 1,000 gold, which puts it into this category range here. We'll go with max minimum gold value, and then we'll go here to create time, creation time reduced, base and reduced. There we go. Siege Engineer spells, level spells, Hunter's Mark, Tensor's Floating Disc. By the way, a ballista weighs 500 pounds, so you can carry a ballista around with your party as long as you can move it, as long as you have space to move, because you can't squeeze or reduce the size of an object, but creatures can. So as long as you're traversing pathways or tunnels or whatever that are at least 10 feet wide, your team can drag a ballista around with you using Tensor's Floating Disc, and just drop the disc down but maintain concentration on it, but land the disc and then load up and fire the weapon, and when you're done you can lift up and then move your Tensor's disc to another location. So having Tensors in the on the spell list for Siege Engineer makes a ton of sense. The mangonel and other weapons are too heavy to do that, but like an Eldritch Cannon you could use, which we have listed in the book. A Harpoon Flinger works, and again a ballista. Those are the 3 types of siege weapons that you can actually load onto a Tensor's Floating Disc and float and have it roll around with you. So we saw, oh yeah, and since they're half casters, they still use the 3, 5, 9, 13, 17 array. Fabricate, Stone Skin, Animate Object, Awaken, Intellect Fortress, Wind Wall, Enhanced Ability, Warding Bond. Actually, I want to look up Intellect Fortress real quick. I want to remind myself of what does that look like. D&D Beyond. Let's go to, I think it still exists in 5e24, right? Tasha's. Oof. Oh, I don't think it made it through to 2024. Intellects Fortress. Okay. Let's go back to this. Let's go to God, it might not be in 5e24 anymore. We'll have to pick a new spell. Spells. Spell name. Let's go to advanced settings. And then go down to source category, core rules, intellect, fortress. That's a shame. Okay, so it doesn't exist in 5e24. Well, we want to be compliant with 5e24, so let's reapproach. Yeah, we're good now. Okay, so let's go by level, and I'm going to separate this into a separate folder here. So we're looking at level 3. We need to give you something different for level 3. So let's cascade our way down to, I bet it's probably like around 7 or 8. We want to think about things that are going to be helpful for a siege engineer. I was thinking Elect Fortress because it creates a dome of protection for your team. But since they got rid of it, we're going to have to replace it. Wind Wall is also a good deterrent from small casual fire that can damage your crew that's working on weapons. Let's see. Aura Vitality, how do you work? An aura radiates from you in a 30-foot area for the duration when you create an aura, and at the start of each turn when it persists, you can sort it to one creature in it. At the start of each of your turns, well, yeah, Aura Vitality. I think that's probably gonna work. But before we conclude, let's just check through some of these to see if there's something that is more appropriate. barrage. Branch weapon used to cast, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we're looking for spells for a Siege Engineer or our Artificer. And Aura of Vitality might be a good way to go. Barrage, it doesn't really complement. Like, I'm trying to think of things like, what can we do to help our crew? Keep our crew safe. So like, Aura of Vitality, if I have that cast, I can just automatically heal one of my crew members 2d6 as long as they're within reach. So that makes a lot of sense. I doubt I'm going to find something stronger. Wind Wall, also very good because we can create a shield around our allies to protect them from small-scale fire. Not against ballistas and other siege weapons. It's too big for that. But, God, Glyph of Warding. Glyph of Warding is that's a good one. I think Wind Wall and Aura of Vitality honestly jive better with what the Artificer is in general, though. So I think we'll let that stand. Yeah. So Hunter's Mark, Tensor's Floating Disc, Enhanced Ability, Warding Bond, Vitality, Wind Wall, Fabricate, Stone Skin, Animate Object for the Ballista, and then Awaken also potentially for the Ballista. If you want to awaken your basically your catapult or whatever to effectively make it a weird shaped Trent, that's fun. So, level 3. As a bonus action, you can create a Harpoon Flinger or Eldritch Cannon as described in the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration supplement, page 34. Since we're here and we're talking about it, actually, let's go down here and look at the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration documents that I created on the DMsGuild for reference. I'm going to crack open the full preview because everyone has access to the free preview if you want it. Bloop. And we're going to scroll down to page 34. Here's our illustration. Here is a Harpoon Flinger. Here is an Eldritch Cannon. Eldritch Cannon, commonly equipped aboard Tyrant ships, but can be elsewhere. Requires focus, and focus is the modified concentration. It works like concentration, but when you're within 5 feet of or occupying space of something that can be focused upon, like a Spelljamming Helm, a spell amplifier, orrery station, and in this instance an Eldritch Cannon. While you're focusing on it, it works like concentration, but you can have concentration on multiple objects at the same time as long as they're within reach of you. But otherwise, it takes an action or a bonus action to gain focus, as opposed to like an hour for attunement. So using focus on a Spelljammer Helm lets you walk up, sit down, and then in the same round gain focus on the helm, so you can start piloting it immediately. So you can jump onto the back of a rocket cycle and take off like Flash Gordon without having to worry about, am I attuned to the Spelljamming Helm that this rocket cycle is built around. So now you can have like space horses, basically robot space horses. And so Eldritch Cannon requires focus. It's a 5-foot space that it occupies, weighs 250 pounds. So you can easily put this onto a Tensor's Floating Disc and have it drag around on a chain behind you. Armor class is as the ship that's mounted to. We'll probably have to create separate stats for it as a standalone Tensor disc once we start putting the supplement out. Crew reload score is a 1, so you automatically can fire it as often as you have attacks. And the special is that requires a spellcaster to operate, and it can be used as an orrery station. Can be used as a spell amplifier, as detailed below. Gravity and Void is ranged as 500 feet plus 500 feet per spell level if you pump spell points into it. And the Eldritch Cannon doesn't have a long range. It's just its maximum range is 500 feet plus 500 feet per spell level expended. Hey, thanks, Timely Timer. We got 20 minutes left in our lunch today. So we do lunches on Tuesdays and Fridays. And we do long form stream design live streams on Mondays and Thursdays. Like last night, we were working on the Bashing campaign, and so Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday are the 4 afternoon nights that we do game design, and then Monday through Friday in the morning we do the artwork for the things that we design, such as this, the Harpoon Flinger and Eldritch Cannon. So, mounted damage, the amount of damage dealt as a mounted weapon is determined by the casting level of the character or the rank of the crewmate, with magical abilities as listed on the table below. This is scaling similar to what you would expect, like, say, for cantrips. So, 1st level, 5th level, 9th level, 13th level, 17th level. Normally with cantrips, it'd be 1, 5, 11, 17. But generally, when I build supplements, I use the 5-step scaffold that ranks up with your proficiency modifier. A +2 bonus at 1st level, 1, 5, 9, 13, 17, +2, +3, +4, +5, +6. So you'll see that as a common theme throughout the books that I produce on DMsGuild or on my streams or on my Patreon or on Discord. All that stuff is linked down below if you want to check it out. Mounted damage, it starts with a D8, and then similar to cantrips, it scales up. D8, D2, 2D8, 3D8, 4D8, 5D8. It's force damage that we're dealing. Mounted damage, so this is the mounted damage that it deals. D8, D8's 1 to 5. And then if you expend spell slots, or if you're using a mana system, like the color mana system that I use for Magic the Gathering, the spell level, or points spent, it's the same thing with the MTG system. 1 or 2 points, you'll deal D4 times 10 damage, which is the same type of damage that a ballista deals. And, well, hey, No Limit Light Productions. What is up, my guy? Welcome to the team. Spell level 3 to 4. That will be a ballista, or rather a catapult. Typically does D6 times 10 damage. And again, this supplement is linked down below. It has a 100% free preview for people to just learn how this stuff works. So like here we're looking at a ballista. This was built for 2014, but we're going to go through the process of updating it for 2024. So the subclasses that we're building will mesh properly with the 5e24 scaffolding, but we'll still have the original 2014 version in the download files for anyone that picks up the book once you do. And anyone that buys this online from 2014, once I upgrade it to 2024, you'll automatically be able to get access to the new book. So ballistas deal a base. So like in the DMG, a ballista does 3d10 damage. We just rounded up to d4 times 10. A mangonel does 8d8 damage. So that's roughly 64 damage. So we make it d6 times 10. A trebuchet deals like 8d10. It does 8d10 damage. So instead we make it a d8 times 10 bludgeoning damage. Gift cannon does 2d8 times 10 bludgeoning damage, and the crew size continues to increase as you scale up. So having said that, we're seeing that we're basically on a scale of like D4, D6, D8, and then we see gift cannons jump to a 2d8 times 10. But with the Eldritch Cannon, if we're expending spell slots, D4, D6, D8, D10, D12 times 10. So if you're willing to spend a 9th level spell slot, or with the universal spell points or the color mana system that I use for spell points, it's spend 9 points and you can do D12 times 10 damage, 7 to 8 points, 8th level, D10, D6, there you go. And so that's a multiplier, and it's just force damage. Bob's your uncle. Siege damage. While the spellcaster hits with an Eldritch Cannon attack, you can deal siege damage by using a bonus action and spending a spell slot as listed above. So normally you can attack with a Eldritch Cannon as often as you have attacks, or you could also use a bonus action to attack. But when you're using Eldritch Cannon to amplify a spell effect, you have to expend a bonus action to be able to dump the higher level spell slot in. So you can't just spam out spell points at high rates of damage, because you don't require a crew to load and reload the weapons. So it has fast action economy. So we want to curb how quickly you can reload the weapon. So that's why we have that bonus action limitation, because for the most part, everyone only has a bonus action per round, unless like time stop. But with time stop, you can't attack things, so the points kind of move. Let's see. For example, a 7th level sorcerer can deal 2d8 force damage with a successful attack, or can use a bonus action to spin a 4th level spell slot to deal d8 times 10. Monsters with magical abilities but no spell slots can roll a recharge die with a target number of 6 as detailed. No, we were talking about like beholders, for instance, have eldritch cannons built into their beholder ships. Those are like those little like the prongy ice stalks. They become eldritch cannons, and if you have multiple holders, then they can operate multiple cannons together. And since they are CR 10, their 3rd rank, which means that they'd roll a d6 and they would add 2. So they would only have to roll basically a 4 or better to be able to recharge an eldritch cannon to fire another disintegration beam, for instance. And then you have the harpoon flingers. We got these from Descent into Avernus, and they're very simple. They only weigh 50 pounds. They're called mounted weapons because they're built into the ship. They don't just free float by themselves, but like we were talking about, a Tensor's floating disc has a 500-pound capacity. Has a 500-pound capacity, and the harpoon flinger only requires 50 pounds. The Eldritch Cannon has 250 pounds. If we tool up to the ballista, it has a 500-pound limit. So you could technically, like I was saying, you can technically take a ballista into a dungeon with you on the back of a Tensor's floating disc to float it around, and then click a pow, fire off d4 times 10 damage at a dragon. Or if you're using just the DMG, 3d10 damage. But that is a completely legitimate tactic. If you have war dogs or something, you can have them drag it for you, or a horse. But as long as you got 10-foot wide spaces, 10-foot wide corridors, you can totally take ballistas into the dungeon with you, and the Tensor's floating disc totally navigates that for you. So having a siege engineer artificer with a floating disc makes perfect sense as a bonus spell, because that completely facilitates that. Animate object and awaken, you can cast those on your siege weapons so that they can become self-loading. It's expensive to do it. Obviously, you have to be a high-level spellcaster to be able to do that, but you can, so cheers. So, create siege weapon. As a bonus action, you can create a harpoon flinger or eldritch cannon, as described in this document. This weapon is immobile unless created on a mobile surface, such as a ship, cart, or Tensor's floating disc. The weapon has hit points equal to your Artificer level times 5, and has the stats and properties of siege weapons as described in SCE page 32, which is in here. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish the long rest. You can also spend a spell slot to regain use of this feature during your turn. If you're using a mana system, like the 1-to-1 ratio spell point system that I use, where half casters get 40 mana, like basically 2 mana per level, up to 40 at 20th level, and full casters end up with 80 mana at 20th level, a spell slot means 2 spell points. Instead of having a variable that will change, first level spell slot, you got 4 of those, and you got 3 second level spell slots. So you basically have 7 spell slots that are reasonable for you to cast before you start overclocking into your 3rd, 4th, and 5th level spells. 2 mana basically takes care of that normally. Extra command. When you use the attack action to attack with siege weapons, you gain an additional attack that can be used to make an additional siege weapon attack, or to command a crew to make an additional ranged ship weapon attack, or to reload. And of course, using the reload mechanics that we have in the Spelljammer book, if a ballista, for instance, has a reload score of 3, if you have 3 crew member, which could potentially include yourself, operating the ballista, when you make an attack roll, instead of rolling proficiency, you roll a proficiency die. It's a d4 at first level, 1st, 5th, 9th, 13th, 17th level. The proficiency die from the 2014 variant rules DMG, its first level is a d4 instead of +2, d6 instead of +3, d8, d10, d12. And so when you roll that command check to attack with the siege weapon, instead of using your proficiency bonus to see if you hit or not, you roll the command die. And if the command die plus your d20 plus your stat modifier, that'll determine if you hit the armor class that you need. But if that command die is equal to or above the reload score, then the weapon automatically reloads as part of your team operating siege weapons. So if you have multiple, you can issue a command to attack as an attack action. So a 5th level fighter, or in this case a siege engineer at 5th level, has 2 attacks. And if I hit with the attack and I roll at least a 3 or better on the ballista, then it's going to automatically reload. And I can use my second attack to fire the ballista again. But if I fail, if the reload die doesn't roll high enough, and you can see that it ratchets up, a mangonel is a 5, a trebuchet is a 7, and you can see here a gift cannon has 2d8 damage, and a mangonel does, a trebuchet does d8 damage and has a reload score of 7, so 2d8 times 10 damage doubles the reload score. It's literally impossible for you to hit a 14 on a 12. So, but you can have specialists that you can hire, higher ranked specialist teams that can reduce the reload score. If you're willing to pay more and hire on higher quality troops, then you can lower your reload score to potentially give you the opportunity to fire a gift cannon twice in one turn. But otherwise, with just like a green crew, like a basic first ranked team, you will never be able to fire a gift cannon more than it will never succeed its reload score. So you would use your bonus action, your reaction, or a separate attack to issue the command to reload, which doesn't do anything for you other than allow you to attack again. And if you're using group economy, I could be firing the weapon, and your bard, for instance, could be using the bard's bonus action to issue the reload score. So I make an attack, I fail the reload score, the bard then uses his bonus action to reload the weapon with the crew, and now I take over again, and I use my second attack to issue another attack action, so I could potentially attack more than once per round with siege weapons against ships that are operating at the 15 to the 500 foot scale with hundreds of hit points. So these weapons don't do a lot of damage against ships, but when you have the ability to fire multiple times per round, you can whittle down a space combat down to 3 or 4 rounds of combat and not have anybody board each other's desks to, the fisticuff or whatever. You can obliterate each other's ships in space almost as quickly as, like, say, a third party could take down an ogre. That's a pretty comparable example. So it remains interesting, and at higher levels you can have squadrons of ships that work as a collective group, where you're sharing action economy to have these ships fire together, and they have their own reload scores that ramp up as well. So, like, if I'm firing 3 ballistas, my reload score would be, if I have a crew that reduces the reload score to 2 each, if I add them all up, if I fire all 3 ballistas together, the reload score is 6. So I would have to be at least 3rd level. I'd have to be at least 5th level rolling a D6 to potentially be able to fire all ballistas at the same time and have them automatically reload. But if I were to fail that reload check, I now have to spend action economy on each individual weapon to get them to get lined up for another shot. I could have all my weapons readied, fire a massive volley, knowing I'm going to fail the reload check, and now each character goes to their separate weapons and commands those crews separately to reload their weapons and fire at will. Fire a massive barrage in one shot in your first round of combat, and then fire at will, which means however quickly you can load and fire the weapon, you can just keep firing. That's a really typical way to launch. So you're going to have a hard front nose hit. It's going to be a big but this is all one attack. So if all 3 of those weapons miss, you just basically blundered your sideline ship shot, and now you're going to have to spend a bunch of action economy to reload all of the weapons. If you hit, then great, and then you can just get into the wheelhouse of spending action economy and reloading your weapons, like 3 weapons, and then, like, if we have that bard and that fighter, that fighter might be able to manage 2 ballistas, but that bard is going to have to can only handle 1 ballista at a time because he doesn't have as many attacks, unless he's like a valor bard. in which case he would have more attacks, and then he'd be able to keep pace with a 5th level fighter that way. It just depends on what kind of a character you're running. Depends on how efficient their action economy is in combat. Since we're using the exact same the same 5e combat chassis for ships as giant-sized creatures as you would for characters in a typical dungeon. So, let's see, extra command. When you use the attack action to attack with siege weapons, you gain an additional attack. That can be used to make an additional siege weapon attack or to command a siege crew to make an additional ranged ship weapon attack or to reload. The siege weapon attack is like some ships, for instance. There it was. Let's go back down to it. Some ships. Here we go. Here we go. Like, so we've got vessels like Night Spider. This is at the 500-foot scale. I'm sorry. These are 50-foot squares. Neogi Night Spider is 200 feet in size, so it occupies a 4x4 space at the 50-foot scale, like gargantuan. And over here, a Spiderling, which is a Neogi fighter craft. These are 5-foot squares, so you can see here that the Spiderling occupies 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it occupies a 40-foot space or an 8x8 space at the 5-foot scale. A 10x10 space is a 50-foot square. So you can see here that this 50-foot square, like say, like for example here, the abdomen. This is a 50-foot square here. This Spiderling fits inside this 50-foot square. So I could potentially have 2 or 3 Spiderlings in the belly of a Night Spider. Or what I prefer to do is just have them latch onto the legs of the Night Spider itself. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I could have 8 Spiderlings as a squadron of fighter craft that is accompanying this this Night Spider, and now you're effectively having like a small battle star, like from Battlestar Galactica. You effectively have a small battle star with a fleet of Vipers that are coming off of it to swarm an enemy ship, land on deck. The Spiderling, for example, has an abdomen that can open up as a landing craft, and it's size large, so you could, like, say, fit an Umber Hulk in the back of your Spiderling. So a Spiderling comes across the deck of your ship, opens up its belly, an Umber Hulk drops down, and now it's using its bonus action to target a weapon crew to become confused. So now they can't fire the siege weapon. You drop a couple Umber Hulks on the deck of a ship, and they're going to crush most, 1/4 CR sailors. Like, an Umber Hulk on your deck is a serious problem. So fighting Neogi is like no small fucking task, man. They are deadly. But slashing ram, these are piercing attacks. Each of these legs act as spears, and at this scale, we're looking at the size of weapons. These are melee weapon attacks. There are no reload properties for melee weapon attacks, but only the pilot can make weapon attacks with ships. So if you have a fighter on, like say you had a fighter, like a level fighter on the piloting a ship, that fighter would be able to make 3 attacks with melee weapons. And at this scale, this is a D8 times 10 damage that it would deal. So each spear attack, these Spiderlings are significantly smaller. So like this would be like, I think these are 2d8 damage per spear. But again, a level fighter would be able to make multiple attacks. A paladin could use a smite. When he hits with a spear attack, you could channel through the helm into the ship, because it's effectively like when you take the helm, you're effectively wild shaping yourself to be the ship. So when a paladin hits, you could channel a paladin smite spell through the attack and deal the extra damage. It doesn't amplify or anything. It's like an extra 2d8 fire damage doesn't sound like a lot from a branding strike when you're dealing d8 times 10 damage on a vessel. But if you start ramping damage in scale with the 50 and 500 foot scale, then you're doing thousands of damage with a fireball, and that's broken. So we had to keep damage from increasing, but the weapons that you can use can scale up. That was the compromise that we used, which is a lot of fun. So back to here. So when you're making an additional siege weapon attack, that's speaking as though you are the pilot of the fighter craft or the vessel that you're piloting. So you can then make siege weapon attacks. Fortify siege weapon. When you take command of siege weapons adjacent to you, you can focus on the weapon to create a magical barrier of force that provides 3 force cover for the siege weapon and the crew operating them. While you remain focused, the protected siege weapon and crew also gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage. You can focus on the weapon to create a magical barrier. When you take command of... Okay, yeah, this is just something you can do. Most siege weapons in this game have some form of cover. Like this weapons deck here and here. These are retractable blinds that you can protect the weapons with. They create partial cover. Anytime any creature that's smaller than 50 feet that has at least partial cover cannot be targeted by siege weapons. So if you're concerned about your first level character getting hit by a ballista for a d4 times 10 damage and dying in one shot, if he's just free floating in space, or like walking across the desert where there's zero cover anywhere, yeah, you could get splatted by a single siege weapon attack. But as long as you have like trees to hide behind or buildings to duck behind, or you can erect, like magically create a wall or something that provides you at least partial cover, the amount of body you have to hit with the size of weapons that are being shot, you cannot target creatures under 50 feet in scale with siege weapons. That's why you have harpoon flingers and eldritch cannons, crossbows and stuff like that on deck, because your crew can't be targeted by siege weapons. You can only attack large scale, like gargantuan scale stuff, kaiju size stuff. So that's worth noting, which is why this is relevant. Providing that cover, if you didn't already have cover, this is literally a lifesaver for your crew from getting one shot by ballista fire. And then we have siege minion. When you use the create siege weapon feature above, you can instead magically create an animated ballista that can be commanded to attack without a siege crew as described in the animate object spell in the document. Let's go to spellcasting. And animate object and awaken both happen to be 4th level spells? No, 5th level, that's right. Animate object. So when you amplify the spell, you can, and by amplifying it means you spend an extra level of spell at the 50-foot scale, or 2 spell slots, or 2 second level spell, like upcast 2 levels, or chip in 2 spell levels worth of magic, up to the 500-foot scale. So when a ship is animated, when a siege weapon is animated, it can be commanded to aim, fire, and reload as though fully crewed. The rank of the siege weapon is equal to the rank of the spellcaster. So by the time you get to 17th level, we get this at 16th. When you create okay, great, yeah, because normally we wouldn't have access to animate object until we are... Yeah, we have animate object and awaken as actual spells. Oh yeah, that's right, because we have to create. So basically, when you create a weapon, which basically uses 2 spell points. Oh, that means I should replace animate object because we get it for free. Awaken allows you to things that are animated. You can give them sentience; they permanently become alive. So you can't do that with your fabricated melee weapon or your fabricated siege weapon because it's gonna disappear. But if it's permanent, you can awaken all of your weapons so that they can be self-crewed. But on that note, let's go down to 5th level to see if we can find a replacement spell. Since we get animate object for free, actually no, that's not true because it's only the siege weapon that gets awakened. We might want to animate other objects while we're at it, so we may as well stick with that. So the ballista has a reload score of 1 and creates its own ammunition when ordered to fire, dealing d4 times 10 force damage. Force damage, yes. The extra attack command feature gained at 5th level can be used while commanding this weapon as though it has a full siege crew. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. I like the changes that we made. We needed to change the creation costs there. That goes well. So you can create your own siege weapons and then make friends out of them by awakening them by the time you get to 17th level. I love that. I'm happy with the spell list now. All this stuff still reads true. And this was just a lunch shift, so unfortunately I have to be done for the day. But the good news is that we're going to be playing with Spelljammer and converting the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration document on Mondays and Thursday nights starting this week. We're going to be basically going through the book page by page and looking at what changed, what rules have changed in 5e14 into 2024 to see where we need to go in and make changes to this document so it remains compliant with 5e24, so we can offer both 2014 and 2024 rules for 5e enthusiasts that like Spelljammer. And then this subclass book will, obviously it's framed around 24. And lastly, the Spelljammer Monsters and Machines is building, instead of our characters running around in fish or insect or bird-shaped ships, instead it creates humanoid-shaped ships that become basically Gundam, anywhere from the 10-foot to 500-foot scale, that your characters can then operate as pilots to basically become Evas or Gundams or Jaegers from Pacific Rim. And we also have the mega kaiju, which are massive-sized creatures. You can see here a wasp desperately trying to get away from this massive purple worm. This is a 100-foot ship here. It's like this thing probably occupies 1,000 feet in scale. And we have all the mechanics into how to build massive scale creatures inside of this book. We'll be extracting those from this document and then extrapolating from that additional information so that you can create kaiju on the fly to challenge your characters aboard their ship. So they're always operating at the 50 or the 500 foot scale with the same level of risk that your 2nd, 3rd, 7th, 12th level characters would have on foot when they're running across a carrion crawler or a purple worm or a dragon or whatever. So these are things that we have in the work that will be seen for 2024. We're going to be finishing the Eberron adventure that we do artwork for Monday through Friday in the morning. Once that book is done, then the Bastion campaigns that we've been working on slots forward, and we'll be working on the Spelljammer stuff alongside that and the color magic system for Magic the Gathering. So we got a lot of stuff on our plate through the rest of 2025 into 2026. That'll all probably keep us busy for the rest of the year. By 2027, we might have all the things that we ever wanted to do in 5e complete, which means we might start rebuilding all these things for maybe Shadow Dark, for instance. I'm a big Shadow Dark enthusiast. So stay tuned. All these ideas can be reduced and simplified to work with other game systems. But hey, Steve, it's good to see you. Unfortunately, Steve, we're at the end of our session because this is just a lunch stream. I got to bounce out of here and go back to work. But I'll be back on Thursday night. We're going to be playing with these ideas more and just fucking around with Spelljammer for a while. So I'll see you guys on the other side. Hey, thanks to everybody that's been hanging out today. I really appreciate it. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. And anyone that's interested in these ideas, we do playtesting on my Discord. So you can like, subscribe, and then join my Discord if you're interested. Check in the description down below for my Discord link, as well as a bunch of free previews to other books that I've already published. I'm going through a lot of these things and updating them for 2024 because I really like 2024 mechanics. They're really good. Really, really good. If you haven't given them a chance, check out the Creative Commons. The mechanics in there are really, really good. So, all right, that's it for now, guys. I'm looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning for Eberron art. And then Thursday night we'll be back. We'll start doing a page-by-page trawl through the Spelljammer Combat Exploration document to find where do we need to make changes for the 2024 mechanics, like grappling and shit like that. We need to make some changes. So That's it for now, guys. I'll see you on the other side. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you, man. Thanks for stopping by. Cheers.